emotional vocabulary, the subtle difference between guilt and shame. So these two emotions get entangled quite early on in the human psyche when a child has this sense of self that their mother usually, or their primary caretaker, which is usually the mother, is literally an extension of their sense of self. And there isn't a clear separation where I end and where the outer world begins, where my mother begins, or where the outer causality begins. So at the baseline, guilt is a conflict of behavior and shame is a conflict of character. If I do something that I shouldn't have done, if I am something that I shouldn't be. And with children, when we get reprimanded for something, or when we get into a conflict situation for something that we have done, we quite frequently translate it as there is something wrong with me. The even more pervasive, toxic, I don't like the word toxic, the even more cancerous, that's a horrible word for it, dangerous. The even more dangerous version of self-blaming and self-shaming is that if someone else does something, there is a conflict of behavior, and it is not even my behavior, and I as a child self translate it as there must be something wrong with me. So if my parents are abusive with me or neglective with me, there must be something wrong with me. Because I haven't quite done anything wrong, I cannot really pinpoint what I've done. So it is in the sense of guilt. There might be guilt tripping. There might be a form of criticism from your parents that why are you like this? Why aren't you like that? Why do you do things like this? The why are you like this? That would be shaming. The why are you doing things like this? That would be guilt tripping. But as a child, you might take it on as I haven't done anything, or I don't understand what I've done, or I cannot make a connection between my actions and the reactions that I'm getting. So therefore, if I'm receiving a treatment, if there is a conflict in behavior, if I'm feeling abused or my boundaries are violated or I'm neglected and I cannot get the love that I want, I cannot get the attention that I want, then there must be something wrong with me, with the very being that I am. And that is an insanely pervasive emotion. So I highly recommend that you look into works on shame. I wanted to say books on shame, but I'm a huge fan of audiobooks and I'm not very good at reading. So there are beautiful works. Brené Brown did a lot around shame, a lot of research around shame. My favorite book is still John Bradshaw's the healing the shame that binds you, something the shame that binds you. I think it's healing. But anywho, if you look up works around shame, hopefully that would make the exact same categorization and differentiation, that when you've internalized criticism, self-criticism, self-blame to the extent that there must be something wrong with my being, that is the core fundamental issue with any sort of relational issues, with any self-esteem issues, with addictive behaviors, with self-punishment, with numbing, with anything that is resulting in an inability to connect, because it means that your sense of self-worth is locking you into this perception, into this belief that you are simply not worthy enough of love, attention, that love has to be transactional, that it's never unconditional, that there always has to be something where you have to earn love, earn attention. You have to do something, you have to sacrifice something in order for you to receive what you want. Guilt is a more subtle form of the same thing, and you can feel guilt. There is a version of guilt that is actually a very healthy, regulating emotion, and as adults, as well-adjusted, well-regulated adults, when we feel guilt, it's actually a good sign that we've done something that is violating other people's boundaries, that we've stepped out of our own moral code, or that we violated an unspoken or spoken agreement that is just not okay. We did something that was out of line. And that can be a very healthy regulating feedback that you shouldn't be a dickhead. You really shouldn't be a cunt. While when we turn that should or shouldn't into a character conflict, that is pure unhealthy. What's his name? I literally just said that. John Bradshaw. John Bradshaw in his book categorizes healthy and unhealthy shame. That is something that I disagree with. The way he is explaining it, his explanation, I can get on board with, but that he's using the same word, shame, for being healthy and unhealthy, I totally disagree with that, because I think it's just confusing. So he's calling healthy shame a sense of inhibition, where you wouldn't be showing your most private inner self to anyone and everyone, especially around intimate situations. There has to be a sense of protection. There has to be a sense of self-protection. There has to be a sense of protecting others around you. To me, it comes out a lot with children, when people put their children on social media without their consent, because they are just too young to consent about anything. I think there has to be a sense of healthy inhibition, where I'm not sure that it's appropriate. If this is what you want to do with your entire life, so be it. It's your choice. Do whatever you want. But I personally don't think that it's a healthy and well-adjusted thing to portray your entire life in their most intimate details on social media, especially if it involves other people, especially if it involves people who cannot make those informed consent choices for themselves, children. So there would be a healthy inhibition and a sense of guilt around what you're doing. But this word inhibition is, to me, it's a behavioral conflict and it's not a character conflict. That's why I wouldn't use the word shame for both of those. Inhibition is a sense of, maybe I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Maybe it's not appropriate for the context. Maybe it's not aligning with my best self. Maybe it's not in my highest interest. Or maybe it's not serving the relationship. Maybe it's not a form of healthy connection. Maybe I'm doing this because I want to get back at someone. Maybe I'm doing this because I'm too insecure and I want to get attention. Or maybe I'm doing this because I'm instigating love from someone, or I'm trying to buy someone's love, or I'm trying to cajole someone's love, or whatever, money, whatever. God, at some point I'm going to talk about the emotional excitation. I just watched the Amazon Prime version of the Twin Flame documentary, and I'm yet to watch the Netflix version of it. And as soon as I watch that, I'm going to talk about emotional coercion and how guilt tripping people is a form of cult grooming. Mwah, gorgeous. But I just wanted to highlight that in no form shame is a healthy emotion. So if there is a conflict of character within you, it is worth looking into it, because it will cause connection issues at all times. And this is another beautiful thing that I've learned from John Bradshaw, where he just goes, any form of addiction is an attempt at intimacy. We choose substances and behavioral addictions because we seek an intimate connection. And as long as you feel a conflict of character, as long as you feel shame, it is absolutely impossible to have intimacy, because you wouldn't have the skill set and you wouldn't have the self-esteem to connect with others. You're absolutely incapable. And that's why we're latching onto substances. That's why we are forming unhealthy, one-sided relationships with unavailable people and with substances and with behaviors that are absolutely transactional, absolutely one-sided, are giving us nothing back in return, because the abilities, the skill set, the emotional muscles for healthy connection have not been built and have been severely atrophied by a sense of shame. So I just wanted to separate the two, guilt and shame, because sometimes we muddle those two together, and it's very healthy to broaden your emotional vocabulary and your emotional literacy, and to become more familiar with the subtlety and the nuances between emotional variations, and to just have a broader color palette to paint with. And if there is any insecurity that blossomed into shame, especially in early childhood, when you had that sense of there must be something wrong with me because I'm not getting the love that I want, I'm not getting the attention that I want, it always has to be transactional, I have to earn affection, and you're craving intimacy, it is worth starting to work with shame.